Hello and welcome to the Cardiac Cats YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jacob Shorba, and we are here for another mock draft as we are only less than 2 weeks away from the 2025 NFL Draft. So we're going to get this thing going pretty quick here. We are pretty much done building our big board at this point. We're going to have some players that I might try to throw in last second just to make sure I don't miss any super prominent names here. And yeah, that's kind of where things stand. Might be some adjustments in rankings, but this is about where I've landed on things. And so you're going to find some themes that we've talked about for the majority of the year that have kind of stayed consistent, right? There is not a massive amount of blue chip talent in this class, right? And some of this blue chip talent that you have are at positions where how valuable is it, right? It is a fair question to ask, and I would probably lean on the side of more valuable than some people would consider them, speaking on like Ashton Genty, Janae Barron. But can you take that at number 5, right? It's going to be the big question. How many first-round prospects are there in this class, right? I only have like just over 20, and a lot of those players are barely sneaking into the first round. They're more of late first, early second types of players. So it's kind of a difficult class if you're picking in the first round and you don't have, let's say, like a top 3 pick at this point. I know that sounds crazy, but honestly, we'll go do our mock draft here. And I've already played out the first 4 picks because, well, honestly, when I try to do this live and I don't have the picks already set, PFF gives me some of the dumbest stuff I've ever seen. So I have to actually just make sure the scenario is somewhat realistic. But you look at these picks, right? Cam Ward, franchise quarterback, that's what you think he can be. Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, blue chip players at premium positions. After that, Will Campbell goes off the board. And what players are you saying that are just like so clearly better than Will Campbell, right? I have guys I like more than him, for sure. But there's a big fall off after those first 3 picks. And so this is the unique situation that Jacksonville finds itself in. And so we're going to talk through this again. We've talked about this a lot this offseason. I've had some different opinions. I've come back to some beliefs I had originally, perhaps, and maybe adjusted them somewhat. But we're going to have to work with this, and we'll start off with pick number 5 here. So once again, I think this is a realistic scenario for how the draft would unfold. I don't think teams want to move up. I think that's pretty clear. I think as far as these picks here, I could see the Giants still going Shedeur Sanders. That would not shock me at all if all the recent talk was a bunch of crap. And that could cause a player to fall. But I also think if Abdul Carter was to not be the pick at 3, then New England's going to take him at 4. I think that's pretty set in stone. And if New England didn't do that, I'd be shocked. And if I was Jacksonville at number 5, yeah, I understand you have Trayvon Walker, you have Josh Hines-Allen. I would still take Abdul Carter because this is a blue chip player that could be among the very best at his position and maybe one day be the very best at his position. So I would have no problem with that personally. But that's not the scenario here. It's not a scenario I think is going to happen, and this is probably how the board's going to look. So if we're looking at my top prospects, guys we could talk about here, it's got to start with Ashton Genty. Now, the question, of course, is can you take a running back at 5th overall as a team that just went 4-13, right? And when you just put it like that, it sounds dumb. It's always going to sound dumb when you don't include context and things, and sometimes the context doesn't work in favor. Sometimes it does. But last year, you had what was probably the worst coaching staff in the NFL, aside from the Patriots, because that was just a crap show, right? Just like us. You had a quarterback who got hurt, was out for most of the season, or at least half of it, and you had a lot of injuries on this team. Now, I think where the Jaguars are, they have brought in a lot of average to this team. I'll put it like that. And I'm not saying that the acquisitions they've made cannot be good players. But a lot of contracts on this team, a lot of players on this team, They are essentially just starters. And then you talk about who are the elite players on this team. You want to say Trevor Lawrence. You can't say that definitively now, but you hope that's the case. I would say Brian Thomas Jr. And on the defensive side of the ball, I think your linebacker core is really good with Devin Lloyd, Foye Oluokun, and Josh Hines-Allen is really close to being a blue chip type of player, although he just seems like he's maybe just at the top of that tier that's below that, and he's kind of just hovered around. That's not enough to me, right? If I can get another blue chip type of prospect, get another top player on this team, I'm all for that. And I think with how bad the run game has been in recent years, what Liam Cohen can bring schematically to get things going. I don't love the offensive line. I think it needs to be better. I do think it's adequate, though, for this year. I think you could draft Ashton Jeanty and get a legit top-tier impact player who, once you really get things built the way you want it to be in a couple of years, I mean, he's going to be one of the best in the NFL, and I think he can be near that early in his career. So I would be very much for Ashton Jeanty in this situation. Your other players to talk about, Jahdae Barron, I know I have a high grade on him. He is not going to be in the conversation for me at 5 because I think he's a slot corner, and you have 2 of those on this team already. Does not make sense to make that pick. And it's not like running back where, hey, I mean, Tank Bigsby can be part of a committee, right? Like, he's a fine player, but he's not some, like, top-tier running back. And Travis Etienne is coming off what was a really disappointing year. There's excuses for that, but, you know, that's just kind of what it is. I think Will Johnson, if this was back in January, very much in the conversation. I think he could be worth this pick. But it's the question of, okay, is the long speed really an issue? Is the athleticism really not what we thought it was? And he did nothing to answer that. If he had worked out and done something, maybe I'd feel a little bit different. But those are kind of the players that would be in conversation for me. I know others would throw out like, okay, if Will Campbell was there, right? We talk about him. Armand Membu. Mason Graham. You hear Mason Graham all the time. For me, he is down at number 14 for me. And these are all very close grades. Just want to add that context. But ultimately, the one player who's worth it here to where I can sleep well at night after this pick and say, hey, we got a stud. We hit on this pick. This is going to change our football team. And this is going to help Trevor Lawrence. It has to be Ashton Jeanty. So that's where I'm at on this. And I honestly think at the end of the day, when we get to, you know, the NFL draft and the way things play out, I think there's a good chance that he will be the top guy for me. All right, so we are up at 36. I was going to pause at 24 to see if there's someone we want to trade up for. Ultimately, looking at the board, the one player who did fall, I would have considered Colson Loveland. I just don't think that he falls there. I think the floor for him is probably pick 22. It's hard for me to imagine him going past the Chargers. So we are going to consider him probably not available in this situation, but this is what your board looks like at pick 36. Now, going through players, there's some really good values here, right? Kevin Winston Jr. could have been worth this pick, and I think he's near it, if I'm being completely honest, but he got injured, and I think you can get him later. So I wouldn't really force that, and I have him probably a bit too high on my board, although I do really believe in him. I think Benjamin Morrison, depending on the scheme you want to run, he could be a really nice asset. And this was a guy that, you know, I remember thinking he could be an awesome, like, top 10 pick for this team. So I didn't expect a great year, and I thought, hey, well, if we stick it out with, you know, this type of defense that Ryan Nielsen was bringing, could be Morrison. Of course, obviously things went awful there, and you're in the scenario you're in now. Derek Harmon, he could be a really nice value And I think the top of these interior defensive linemen, it's pretty close between a lot of these players. They all offer different things, but Harmon would be, I think, a really fun asset for this team. And if he can just finish better, he's a top player in this class. And he would be a really good value at this point to where I could say, hey, I'm going to get a first round type of guy at pick 36. There are some other players I really like. Carson oh my gosh, can I say this right? Carson Schwessinger. Just watched him last week. I know he's a linebacker. He's a my guy immediately just from watching him. He's so freaking good. I think he could be an awesome coverage linebacker. I don't think this team has that. And I could see things work out to where, say you want to get off the Oluokun contract after 2025, you could have Lloyd and Schwessinger as your linebackers. I just think he's a really damn good football player. But it's a little rich at 36. You've got some other names, though, right? A lot of guys we could talk about. Jaylen Royals, another one of those guys. Ultimately, for me, this is a spot where I have a lot of options. I have a lot of players. They're kind of close in grading. As far as the top one available, see who that is. I think I passed him. Wherever I have Derek Harmon. Maybe Harmon is a little bit lower for me on my board than I thought. So Morrison would be my top guy. You also got Ravel, Kevin Winston Jr., Derek Harmon. A lot of players kind of in similar areas. So in this scenario, I would be looking to trade back. As far as teams that want to do that here, I would want to move back somewhat substantially. I think the Cardinals could make sense at pick 47. You got a lot of cornerbacks on the board. They're a team, which we'll see what they did. Okay, they took linebacker, or I guess a pass rusher, and Izaraku. So I could see the Cardinals being a team that wants to move up here. So, we can look at a draft value, figure out a pick that makes sense here. I am using the Rich Hill trade value chart. It's more of a modern one. I think it fits trades a little bit better. Wherever this feels like loading. So 36 to 47. The difference in value as we get bombarded by ads is 42 points, which is going to be worth a late third round pick. Now, the Cardinals don't really have that here, but what I would be willing to do is take a third in the future and to say, hey, that pick is probably going to end up being somewhere in the top 80. So you're going to have valuable draft capital in 2026 to add on. That's another trade asset if you want to make moves at the trade deadline, which this team will have money for at the end of the day. And I don't need more picks in this class. I have a really good situation here with 10 selections. So it makes sense, I think, for both sides. And so we are going to make that trade with the Cardinals. And we will see what they end up doing with this. Okay, there we go. Took forever. I was wondering what was going on there. So we might have some players go off the board we like. Jack Betch, could definitely throw him out. But honestly, the only one we really lost here was Derek Harmon. So I would say this comes down to Kevin Winston Jr. I don't think Morrison's the scheme fit that you want. Carson Schwessinger is also here to talk about. I would rather take the strong safety in Kevin Winston Jr. if I'm choosing between them. You could also talk about Jaylen Royals at this point. I think Jaylen Royals would be awesome for this team. But I think compared to those other options, even though I think Royals can be like a really nice wide receiver too, I just think that Kevin Winston Jr. for me, well, maybe he could fall to the third round. I would take that bet here and get the guy that, only played one game this year, but was arguably the top safety going into 2024 for the college football season. I know a ton of people had Starks over him. I had Winston as number one. I'm going to finish with him number one. I think he has phenomenal athleticism, phenomenal size. I think he is a really talented player out of Penn State. I think he's a forgotten name. And I think if you make this kind of addition, you add to a safety room that, you may have quite a few options. It's a lot of free safeties, right? You don't have great options at strong safety. Eric Murray can help you out there for now. I don't want to pay him long term. He's not going to stop me from making this kind of investment. So we are going to take Kevin Winston Jr. at pick number 47. So I don't really think... Okay, hold up. We might move up here. I was thinking we might wait. But we have two options we really liked. We've got plenty of draft capital. Schlesinger just went off the board. And so he would have been one of our options. I know some people probably disagree. It's okay. But we want to get Jaylen Royals here. We did not get a wide receiver yet in this class. I think you got some guys that are not here long term, right? You talk about, Gabe Davis. He's going to be gone after this year. You look at, let's say, for example, Diami Brown. Who knows if he sticks around long term? If he's successful here, that's a lot of money to have to pay a player when you're now going on to that second part of Trevor Lawrence's contract where you are paying him $55 million, right? And obviously the cap hits aren't that, but it's going to keep going up and up and up every year. So I would not want to make that deal. I think to make this trade, it's not much. You're getting a really good player, someone with some great ball skills, good size, almost built like a running back, and just a phenomenal route runner with incredible athleticism. Now the cost for this, it's really 10 points on this chart. So that is going to be like a pick around 160. We have 142. So we're going to offer that, just a slight overpay here, not really much, and this would be what would probably be demanded anyway. So we're going to make that trade. And yes, Benjamin Morrison is still here. Once again, this is really a question of schematics. If he was actually a really good scheme fit, and that's what they wanted to do, I think he's the pick here. I just don't think he's really a fit if they're going to run a decent amount of zone, and if you don't do that, then okay, now we're kind of hurting Tyson Campbell, who you're paying $19 million a year. Now, if we want to talk about other names, Alfred Collins could be a name in the mix. It's a really nice defensive lineman. He'll be able to help you stop the run, maybe play a little bit of nose tackle, but mainly be like on the interior of that defensive line, helping against the run, offering some pass rush upside. But Royals is going to be the pick for us. Played 7 games, 839 yards this year. Great player. I think he's just going to be someone who's very safe to bet on at the NFL level. And now you've come out of this with an extra third-round pick next year, and you've got 3 starters out of this class. So definitely a fan of that. Now, I don't plan to trade too much more, especially because we can't really see who's available. But pick 88, we've definitely got some options here to talk about. We've addressed running back. We've addressed wide receiver. We've addressed strong safety. You could go after an Oladejo. Andrew Makuba would be a really nice free safety for this team. He is undersized, but he's a good player. It's just you're adding to what is now a very crowded room, and that would be an investment for future years rather than this year. Tate Ratledge could be a good guard. RJ Harvey, I know, is a big-time fan favorite for people in Jacksonville. Jared Wilson might be one of the best centers in this class, although I don't think I would bet on him. He would not be my guy that I'd want at that position long-term. Wyatt Milam could be the direction we go. Now, I think with Milam, while his zone grade is much higher here, there are some athletic questions with him. There are the size questions. He's going to have to transfer into guard. And so there is a bit of a transition, and there's the question of, is he going to be someone who maybe needs to be more of a gap scheme? I think he could do both. I think he could be capable of that. I think that getting Milam gives you the option to move off one of your guard contracts in the future, probably Ezra Cleveland. You're going to save a little bit of money, and you're going to get a player who's going to give you that edge in the run game. Plays ferocious, takes people down. It's a very aggressive and very calculated player, I would say. Like the way he plays, it's very, what's the way to put it? He is not someone who makes critical mistakes often. That was just not something I saw on film. Now, if I was to throw out other names, you could go after Jamari Caldwell as a nose tackle. It's a little rich for me at 88, I would say. That's probably the only other name that would be heavily in consideration for me, but not near what I would say for Milam. So in this scenario, I think it's Milam or it's Oladejo, and I'm going to go with Wyatt Milam here. We're going to get a guy we think can be a long-term option on the interior of the offensive line. Also could have gone Joshua Farmer. I did not see his name. I guess maybe Trevor Sikkema is pretty low on him, which is why he wasn't here. I think I know what we're doing here, seeing that Oladejo is still here. But we're going to go deep down the board. Just make sure we're not missing any names. Kobe Bryant, I think he'd be a fun addition on day 3. Wouldn't have a problem with him. This is a player I want to add to my big board, just FYI. You could also be looking... Actually, no. I was about to say you could be looking at like another running back, but forgot we drafted Ashton Genty for a moment. Yeah, going down the board, I don't know if I see someone here who I would really consider heavily at this point. Obviously, I'm a huge Kyle Monangai fan. I'll probably spare you all the pick this time because we got Ashton Genty. Although if he fell far enough, I would still take it. But I think this is probably got to be a pick in Oluwafemi Oladejo. Kyle Williams would be really fun too. I think he's gone by now, realistically. Probably the same here. But I could also see the NFL not being as high as maybe some of the scouts are in the draft community. So in this situation, that's going to be the pick. We need another edge rusher. We've got to add to that position. We need depth. I think you get a player that can offer a good amount against the run to start. We'll actually just look at him really quick on here. He's a good run defender right off the bat. I think the pass rush, he's got things to work with. A little bit raw, right? He's a new player at the position after playing linebacker. So it's all got to be considered. But I think Oladejo is someone who could be a really nice developmental piece and definitely an edge 3 for this defense. Big position in need. Now, we still got 4 picks left after all this. We'll have to see who's on the board, as quite a few names went there that I would have liked. I know some people would like Jones still. I think even with the edge selection. Trevor Etienne would be fun if Travis was a part of the long-term plans, but isn't really that in this situation. Benjamin Urosic, I would be okay taking him here. And he might be the pick for us. And I know I've talked about him at least a decent amount in these drafts. We'll probably revisit him, though, and just give my thoughts on him again. He could be someone that I would be good with on day 3 for sure. I think could be a nice piece to a tight end room. And I think he's my tight end 6 in this class currently. Kandra would be at least a good backup guard. Could be a way you go. Yeah, I don't see like dominant options. Jackson Hawes, if you want to replace Luke Farrell, he could be a nice pick. I think I would want to take him later, though, because got huge questions about his upside as a receiver. At this point, I think we are going to go with Benjamin Urosic, and I'm going to explain this pick because a lot of people forget who he was if you were not part of summer scouting. You were not following the draft at that point, and I don't blame you if you weren't. But Urosic, he played for Stanford before. He's a good tight end there. Had an injury in 2023, kept him out for a lot of the season. You saw that here. But he is someone who was clearly a receiving tight end. A little bit of a question with his build. He's slightly undersized, I would say, as far as his height and weight. So like your official measurements for him, take a look at him here. Surprisingly not invited to the combine as well. Was pretty disappointed by that. But he is 6'4", 242 pounds. Now 33-inch arms. It's good stuff there. Ran pretty fast in his 40-yard dash, so he's very athletic. The exciting thing about your Rosick, especially now, after he was already someone I was a big fan of in summer scouting, when he went to Georgia, yeah, maybe it was a little disappointing at first. He wasn't a huge part of the passing attack, but they made him earn things there. He stepped up his game as a blocker. I think he developed very well there. He's a lot more technically refined than he used to be. Brings great effort. I think this is someone that you can bring in, have him be a tight end 2 on your team. Have him be someone that, yeah, you're probably expecting him to run routes, but you want him to block, he can do that. So he can do really anything you ask of him. So I would be a big fan of Benjamin Jurasic on day 3. This is a little bit earlier than I'd expect to do it. But you don't pick again until 182. And I don't see a ton of names that I'm running up to the board for. Although I'm sure there's people who would probably just want Gunnar Helm in this situation. Personally, I'm just a big fan of Jurasic, and I'm going to get my guy here. So let's go ahead. We'll speed this up. We're not trading here. We're just going to finish out our picks. See who's here. Now, I may go this direction. I do need to watch him. So I might not also go that direction for that reason. But he should be added to my board before the draft. Let's see who we got. Manungai is still here. I'm going to say he probably is already off the board. Emory Jones Jr., he's someone I've used that excuse for as well. But I could see him having the Leonard Taylor kind of fall. I've mentioned this multiple times, but this was a first-round guy coming into the year. He struggled, had some really concerning things on tape, but you still have a ton of potential there. And I think you could bring him in, try to develop him, try to make him a guard, and see if you got something there. Because if this works out, I think you get a lot of those exciting traits that you saw before that made him a first-round prospect. So Emory Jones, even though he's coming off a rough year, he would be the pick here, I think. If he falls, I'd be a huge fan of that. So we're not going to really look much past that because for pick 182, it's a lot of upside. So we're going to go that direction. See who else is available. I think Shao's gone. If he was here, I would take him as a backup. Have no problem with that. Jay Higgins will be a fun addition at linebacker. Miles Frazier should be gone. He's a starter, I would say, in the NFL. Hunter Wohler, you've seen a few times from me. I just think he's a good, strong safety. I think he's going to be able to start in the NFL. We already added one, though. It's a crowded room. And I've done that pick a lot, so we'll go in their direction. Let's see. Who else here? I'm not seeing a ton of names I love. We'll check out one more page, and then we'll go back if we don't see anyone. Yeah, it doesn't look like that's the case for me. So let's go back here for a second. We'll just try to find someone we'd like at this point. This might be where we take Cameron Jackson. Now, you'll look at the build. He's clearly built to be a nose tackle. That's what you're drafting him to do. It's a good run stuffer as well. Good grades there. I can't give much analysis past that because he's a player I've still got to watch. Going to have him on my board before the draft. But I think at this point, you need someone there to pick 194. Even if I didn't have a great draft evaluation of him, I'd probably still be comfortable making this pick to try to add to that room where you don't really have a whole ton to work with, right? So that's going to be the pick at 194. And we'll see who's here at 221. Probably not going to try to spend too much time here or overthink it. You're just taking a shot at what you can. And at this point, I think we'll just go with Hunter Wohler And you just imagine that as players leave that safety room that really you don't need to pay, Darnell Savage for one, Eric Murray if you're able to find the replacement, which we did in this mock, you get Waller in, and I think you got someone who could play a bit and could be a starter if you need him to do that at any point. So that's going to be our pick here at 221. That's going to wrap this thing up. We're going to look back through it. And honestly, I'm pretty excited for the results here. You've got a blue chip prospect at the top. I know there's going to be the questions about the position. I just think it's as simple as Ashton Genty is an elite player. I think he should be that at the NFL level. And you're getting someone who's going to transform your offense. And you need people who are going to be able to do that and help out Trevor Lawrence. Kevin Winston Jr., we moved back for him. We picked up a third-round pick next year in doing this. And I think Winston is a top player. I think if he was healthy this year, and if he played on the trajectory he was going, he could have been close to a blue-chip safety prospect. I think there's a world where that could have been the case. So definitely someone I'd be excited for. We moved up for Jaylen Royals, wanted to secure a wide receiver in this offense long-term. That gives you Brian Thomas Jr. and Jaylen Royals that you can rely on, and you can figure out who you want to have as your wide receiver 3. Maybe that's just Parker Washington. Maybe it's in their direction eventually. But for the long term, your wide receiver room is built really well. You get Wyatt Milam here too. You could have him as a future guard. Get Oldejo, help out with the edge rotation, and then just taking shots on players. Might have a little more upside and have a path to eventually making an impact on the field for this team. So ultimately, I'm a fan of this. I'm interested to see what people think. It's definitely a different mock draft than maybe what we've done before with the trades on day 2. I don't know if we moved back from pick 36 before. Usually we're talking about going up the board. But I think this is probably about where I'm going to land with things. I think there's a good shot someone's there at Minnesota's pick to where I would move up. But I would be completely fine with just trying to get more draft capital in the future. This is a weaker draft class. And so if you can do that, take it. I mean, that's okay. You're still going to get a great player if you really choose wisely with what you get back in return. So let me know your thoughts on it. I appreciate y'all watching this video. Sorry we just have not had as much stuff the last few weeks. It has not been a typical off season for us. Just a lot of things going on, but it should start to calm down here, at least in my own personal life, while things get crazier in the NFL world as we're coming up on the NFL draft. So thank y'all for watching. I want to shout out our channel members, Premier Seer 904, Nightmare Eco, Gator John Bites, Ichi Wiener, Mr. Dolphin, Scrubber Ducky 5-Haired, Brian Foster, and Franchies. Thank y'all so much. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And finally, go Jags.